I don't understand the people who are saying that Iron Man was the villain in Civil War. It makes zero fucking sense. How is he the villain? You're talking about Captain America, who was willing to risk the lives of everybody in the Avengers for fucking Bucky, for one person. So
But how
Captain
does that make
America's
him a bad guy? He was being loyal to his friend that was loyal to
He's
him.
risking the lives of the Avengers and the world for one fucking person. Do I have to repeat
How
myself? What's going on, everybody? My name is McFly. We are a family of nerds. Welcome back to our podcast. To my right is Greg Lopez. What's going on, Greg? To my left is InHerScope, Mr. Arizona himself. What's going on?
Hey, what's up?
So we just got finished watching the final trailer for Winter Soldier. I personally have a lot of questions, but I'm super stoked for the show. It looks like it's going to be extremely action-packed movie type of action for 9 episodes. So if you don't get an adrenaline rush from this, I don't know what will give you an adrenaline rush. But let's kind of get into it. Let's talk about it. I want to hear what you guys are expecting from the show, so just gonna go through. Greg, what are you expecting from the show? Let's talk about first the dynamic between Bucky and Sam Wilson. How do you think that's gonna turn out?
I think that this is going to be one of those things where they kind of butt heads a lot, and there's going to be a lot of like, I mean, just from the trailer, it felt like there's some comedic like value in their relationship. The fact that they've basically fought, that was their introduction, is like fighting each other. Whether or not Winter
Yeah,
Soldier remembers, that's got to put a strain on a relationship. It's a hardcore first impression to make.
yeah,
Lasted one too.
definitely some trust needs to be built right between Bucky and Sam, just because Sam had Cap's back and he saw what Winter Soldier did, and I'm sure that Bucky doesn't remember most of it, so he's not really sure what he needs to earn back trust-wise, but there's definitely a lot of turmoil in that relationship that I think is going to start out with them kind of being standoffish to each other. Scope, what about you? What do you think is going to be coming in the show between Falcon and Winter Soldier and their relationship?
I think it's gonna start off really rocky, but I think by the end of the show, I think they're gonna be really fucking tight. Like if Captain America ever comes in the picture, they're gonna be like, "Who the hell's this guy?" You know what I'm saying? Like they're gonna be
Mhm.
tight as fuck.
And I want to talk about this in depth later, but I'm just gonna bring it up real quick now. I know that there was interviews with Sebastian Stan like years ago, and where he was saying that it's confirmed that he's going to pick up the Captain America mantle. But they're also now lately it's been saying Sam Wilson. I think we're going to see a dynamic between them both juggling that between the two of them. And I also want to get more into depth if we have time later to talk about the issues with people that people have with Sam becoming Captain America, but we'll table that for now. Let's talk about who the villain in this is going to be. So, like you, Greg, I also read that Baron Zemo was going to be the main villain in this. He's going to be Helmet Zero. But from that final trailer that they showed, I didn't see him. I saw two other people, a woman and a man much younger than him. So who do you think is going to be the main villain? They're going to be more? What do you think?
I think from where I was looking some stuff up. It sounds like there's going to be Helmet Zero as like the main, and the people that have those like handprints on their masks. I think they're the Flag Smashers or something. I think that those are going to be kind of like pawns. The puppet master is probably like the Helmet Zero guy that
Right.
essentially wants to get rid of superheroes everywhere. He's like the bad guy from Incredibles. No one can be special.
I'm gonna assume here because of the canon story in Civil War that you both just watched and I did not, but I remember pretty clearly that movie. That his
So
both his
good.
kids are dead, so I'm gonna assume that those two are not his kids, but they could be.
His wife, right?
No,
His wife died too.
Yeah, they all
I'm pretty
died.
sure.
Yeah, the
According
whole
to him, they all
family.
died.
He's a new Cable.
I don't know who these people are, so we'll find out for sure. What do you think, Scope, about who the villains are gonna be? Are there gonna be multiple? Is it just gonna be those two that we saw? What do you think?
I think it's gonna be. I think somebody that we don't even know yet is still gonna be coming in the picture. But I think
Hmm.
for now, this is definitely Helmet Zero is gonna definitely be the main guy, and this is gonna be like his little minions. I'm excited, man. And they all have like special like strength or something, or the female at least did.
She had something, or she's just a badass
Yeah.
in general. But it's cool, you know. MCU is pretty good at introducing new characters, and whether they're going to be permanent state like villains or if they're just going to be for the show. Either way, I'm always happy to see. I mean, Agatha was a great addition to WandaVision, and she's going to be in future projects, whatever they might be. So that's going to be cool. The other thing we saw in both trailers was Sharon Carter. I thought she was a good person for both Bucky and Sam in Civil War when they were just them three together.
Like a
So I'm glad.
mediator.
Yeah, like mediator. There you go. I'm glad to see her in this. Plus, when I see her, I think of Peggy Carter, and you already know my feelings on that. So, um,
Doing, doing, doing.
exactly. So, are you guys excited to see her in this? And what do you think her role is going to be in this show? I'll go
I
first.
mean,
So,
oh,
I think. Sorry, I think.
someone's
You
excited.
guys. No, so I think so. She was kind of into Cap, right?
Yeah.
And the early
A little
not
bit.
reports. The early theories are that she's going to end up with one of them two. I don't know which one it is, Sam or Bucky.
I mean,
So,
I definitely wouldn't choose
Or
the one
both.
that got their ass whooped by an Ant-Man. You know what I'm saying?
oh, burn, burn.
Whoa, man. Whoa.
I think she'll play Meteor in this as well, but I think she's gonna have a bigger role in this.
I mean, I think it's cool, like when they keep fleshing out some of like
Side
the
characters.
I don't want to call them like minor characters, but yeah, the characters that aren't really like they don't have their own films or anything like that. So
Right.
rewatching Winter Soldier and Civil War, I mean, she's huge. She's easily just as important as Falcon, but like it's just that he's doing a lot more of like the physical stuff and like he's side by side with Cap, but she was kind of like running other things that ends up like really helping them get things done. Maybe not just as important as Falcon, but she's pretty big. So it'll be cool to see like instead of her just popping up here and there, just following more of like what she does. But yeah, I don't know which one she'd end up with because this it seems kind of weird because she was into Cap, and so I think that maybe they're too close to that relationship for that to work out, but could be wrong.
Yeah, and I don't think that's like the main part of her story. I just thought that was interesting to bring up. I think she's gonna be the badass female character in this show. Since WandaVision, she was the badass female character. Although there was Monica
Oh,
I
in
think
that
she's
did,
show,
gonna take.
but
I think she's gonna take on the role as Black Widow, kind of. You know what I'm saying? Like the secret agent type,
she
badass
she
chick, and
yeah, they have to replace her somehow.
yeah.
I don't necessarily think she'll be ScarJo's replacement in the MCU,
No, no,
but
no, no.
definitely in this show for sure. Yeah, I agree with you on that. But anything else on Sharon Carter on your end, Scope?
Now, who's she gonna be working for? Shield or a Sword?
She's still, well, whatever it is now.
Shield. Yeah, I think she's just gonna be the connection that they have with all like the agencies and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
the foot in the door type thing. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean that's all I think. Yeah,
That's a
she'll
good
help
point,
them.
man. Where did she end? Like, I don't remember where she ends up, I guess, in terms of like the agencies, because she's with Shield, then she's
She
with
was
like the
with
CIA
yeah, I think she ends up with Shield.
Yeah, that's
again.
But we
Okay.
also, or at least I didn't, maybe I didn't do enough research, although I feel like we did a lot. I don't know when exactly this is. Like WandaVision was right after Endgame for the most part.
Hmm.
I don't know where this lies. If it's right after Endgame, if it's a couple years where we're at. So again, we'll find that out.
Oh,
But I
that's
think
true.
that would be key in kind of knowing where everybody's at. If it is after Endgame, I'm assuming she'll be working for Sword.
It has
I'm
to
not
be
sure.
after Endgame because
Yeah.
that's when he gets the shield, right?
Mhm.
Falcon. If it was before Endgame, like Cap would be there somewhere.
I'm excited for the show specifically because, like I told you guys, Winter Soldier is my 1A favorite movie in the MCU. Just everything about that movie, like the action was great. It was the most realistic from a sense of like action plus superhero powers type of thing that in an MCU movie. Like you can literally take that movie out of the MCU and it would still be awesome. It's not relying on the characters. It's not relying on the superpowers as much. It's a good action film as a standalone film. It's one of my favorite films. To have most of those characters come back and kind of take on that action genre and put into the show is awesome. So I'm super stoked for that. Let's talk about the two main characters. We're going to talk about Falcon first and then Winter Soldier. Get into kind of their origin stories because I learned a lot from researching their origin stories. I didn't know Falcons
Yep.
as much. And I have some kind of questions if they're going to implement some stuff that was in the comics that they haven't yet. But let's talk about Falcon first. Let's just start the comic book origins for.
I watched his first, so I was really surprised because I guess I really didn't know, and I guess this keeps happening. Is that
Mhm.
somebody will get introduced into the MCU, and I'll be like, are they kind of really important, or what's their deal? This is definitely one of them. I was like, oh, he's just like a character that's going to help Captain America move through this, Winter Soldier plot. Whether he sticks around or what his importance is to Cap, I don't really know. And then checking the comic books, I'm like, oh, he's like kind of like exactly how the movie goes. He's like his best friend because Bucky's not around. He's just somebody that he can trust. He's his right hand man. The comics came out in like the 70s, and so a lot of Falcon's storylines are kind of intertwined with things that were happening in the 70s. I definitely noticed a trend where a lot of the plots that he would unfold or kind of he would just kind of fall into these race related issues like constantly. It was like some sort of anti-white group that was like preaching violence against white people, and pretty much all these black people were attending, and it was getting violent. And then he would be like, I don't agree, what's going on here? And then like a Scooby-Doo, like he would take the mask off the person preaching to everyone, and it's like some white dude, or it's it was just really, really bizarre. Just from learning that, I am interested in knowing, like, is there anything that they didn't use to create his character so far in the MCU that they're planning on saving for later? Like, is he going to get? He's going to get the comparison to Steve Rogers, Sam Wilson, and Steve Rogers. You know, if he's holding that mantle, then they're gonna do that. And he's the whitest guy you've ever seen, and he's a black guy. It's gonna be difficult for them not to bring that stuff into play. But I am interested in seeing how it goes, how far they take it, I suppose. You know, how much is this going to be like an issue that he has to deal with? Like, how often is it? You know, is it going to be like a one-time thing? Is it going to be like kind of ongoing issue?
Captain America was white, now he's black, and the whole, race issues thing and stuff. But that's going to be a huge tangent, at least for me it will. So I'll table that for the end. What I'm curious about for Sam, I know in the comics, he essentially like met him in a village, right? His trusty sidekick, Sam's trusty sidekick, was literally a Falcon, which is where he got his name from. I'm wondering if this show, if they're going to go and kind of do like the origin story of Sam, and if they're going to go back in time and talk about, I don't know, when he was a kid, he had like a Falcon as a pet or something. Like, I want to know if they're going to tie this into the comic books at all, or if they're going to take it their own way. Either way, I'm happy with it. I have 100% faith right now in the MCU. But I'm just curious to see what they're going to do with that.
For Red Wing, by the way, I don't know if you remember this, but he has a little, in Civil War, he has a little drone that he controls.
That's
and
Red
he's
Wing.
like, he's like, it's Red Wing. And Black Widow's like, I'm not going to thank that thing. I like that scene just went over my head. Like, I didn't know that. I was like, okay, he really likes this robot. That's, good for him.
Yeah.
Now
it's
knowing
crazy when you have context,
the
right?
origin. Yeah, I was like, oh man, what a nice little nugget.
Yeah, it's a little like Easter eggs for the comic book fans.
Yeah, that was cool.
And I'm also wondering, like, if they do talk about that, like, so in the comics, right? It wasn't till like later on in the series where he has this suit tech that he has now. Black Panther. You're right. It was from he got it from he got it from Wakanda. Yeah.
Well, that's in the comic though, but in the movie, it's government issued because during Civil War, they take it away from him. I know that basically it's like government property. It's like essentially a jet.
And he was like the first tester of it or whatever. That's what it was. I remember now.
It's like him and his friend, his buddy Riley, or they were probably like the beta.
Yeah.
Beta testing. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not what it is, but
yeah.
Their free trial was up.
This is experimental, man. You don't want any part of this.
Before we take all of your points, Scope, what about you?
My bad.
What are your comments about the kind of the Falcon's origins and how it relates from the comics to the movie?
Nothing really. They're doing a great job. I mean, I don't really that they could, or I mean, besides having him get a fucking actual Falcon at one point, maybe, but
I think that would be cool though, like, or like just have a Falcon like land next to him and be like, him have a little, hey, what's up?
Little moment.
Pretty cool. Yeah, a little moment.
Like, here's a worm, buddy.
If that was his inspiration to fly, that'd be pretty dope.
Yeah. I think we have the benefit of not being knowledgeable of the comics and like have fallen in love with it and be mad that they're not really following it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a good thing. We kind of already talked about this, but how he got to this point in the MCU. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward, right? What was his first scene was in it was Winter Soldier, yeah, when they're running around the
on your left
building. Yeah. Oh, God damn it. He keeps running faster.
Steve Rogers, he's like, I gathered.
And then from there, he kind of became Cap's right-hand man, his sidekick.
I mean, he was super clutch.
He was
Like
clutch.
Captain was losing everybody. Like he didn't trust anyone, and then he had this brand new guy who was like ride or die immediately. Like that's pretty awesome.
He was loyal to Cap when nobody else really was, especially in Civil War. Fuck, even I fell off the Cap train in Civil War and I'm still off of it. I think that's important to remember that he was always there for Cap and he was a loyal American. He was a loyal. He followed the law. He did everything right by pretty much the country, the government, and Cap. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I don't think there's any really important villains that I saw in the research about him. Most of them were related to Cap. So I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything spectacular to talk about there. So
I think the only weird thing there was that he got involved with Spider-Man in the comics. I really don't think that's going to play a role here. It seems like
everybody, we can go into a whole conversation about what characters I would like to be in the next Spider-Man movie or be integrated through Spider-Man. We can literally talk about that for hours, so I'm not even going to get into that. So let's talk about Winter Soldier. His origin obviously is also related to Cap. There's a lot of stuff in the comics that are much alike what they did in the movie. He dies one way or another. I think in the newer storylines, it follows more of what happened in the first Captain America movie, where he dies trying to defuse a bomb and he doesn't defuse it in time. But he still dies. He gets found by Russian intelligence or whatever, and they try to mind control him. So they brainwashed him to be basically a Russian assassin. The only difference here is that they kind of go into more detail. So a lot of what the movie skipped. It's basically he dies, then you find out he's being mind controlled. Basically, every time they need him to do a mission, they mind control him, right? Well, in the comics, there's a little bit of story between there. He essentially is mind controlled once, and they're having him do all of these tasks. And he slowly starts regaining his memory and his mind fills in the blanks. So he kind of goes against what he's being ordered to do. The Russians decide then that they're going to refreeze him until they need him. And until they can perfect the mind controlling program that they have for him. So they do again, they take him out, and he still starts to rebel after a while. So then they finally decide to, just like in the movie, for every task that they have for him, to mind control him. Not really important, which is probably why they left it out of the movie, but it just shows that he was a work in progress, right? The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm wondering still if they're going to implement this in the MCU, but a lot of what happens with Cap and Bucky's story has to do with the cosmic cube, and I don't know if you guys read about that or not.
yeah.
A lot of like having to do with the mind controlling with him has to do with the cosmic cube. A lot of Cap's decisions has to do with cosmic cube, and then how Cap gets Bucky back to remembering his old self. He uses the cosmic cube for that as well. They kind of took that out of the MCU, which I understand because it's a very weird concept. I'm just curious if they're going to bring it into the MCU at some point or if they're going to do something else. I guess the Red Book was kind of the cosmic cube in a sense in Civil War, if you think about it. But that was kind of my curiosity. Essentially the same as it is in the MCU, his comic book origin, so they're pretty much similar.
I did notice though Bucky in like the really old comics was apparently like a kid, which I thought was made more sense for his little nickname. Apparently he was like the little kid sidekick of Captain America that would go do some of the, for whatever reason he would do things that were more sketch because he wasn't wearing the flag. So there were
Yeah.
things that Cap shouldn't do. Somewhere along the way his popularity dies and so they kill the character or they just stop making him. I forget what happens.
It was
I think
it was
that
both it was both him and Cap.
Yeah, it's like
they-
some
they-
sort of bomb on a helicopter or a plane.
Yeah, so they killed them off and then they brought them back for like 3 issues or something, and the sales were horrible, so they dropped them off again until
Yeah.
it was like the 1980s or something like that. And they brought them back, and then since then they've been going. Stan Lee didn't like the concept of child sidekicks. He said
Yeah.
that was one of the things he really disliked about the comic books in general, was having these child sidekicks. And he was 16, by the way, and he was trained at 16 to be a professional like assassin, essentially.
Yeah, it was assassin. I said sketch things, and it's like, yeah, he was a murderer. As a kid, that's kind of messed up, man.
Which it
Yeah,
makes more
like-
sense what he turned into when he was mind controlled, and that's why he knew 7 different languages, and he knew close quarters combat and all that stuff. Even though he had amnesia, he conveniently had
Right.
all of those things, right? So that makes sense.
Because like when you have like brain trauma and stuff, usually you remember like
Yeah.
newer information goes away, but you're like old stuff. You'll be like, oh, I know where my parents live, or something like that. A house where I grew up in,
Yeah.
the school I went to. But like the last 10 years will be like, I don't know you. I don't know that that's what always happens, but
Yeah.
I could
Yeah.
see it being that way. Like if he learned all that stuff as a kid and then has all this stuff happen to him later, that's might be the stuff that sticks.
I think the Winter Soldier story as a whole is pretty interesting, and if they were to do like a origins movie for him, I think it would be really cool to see, and they could have like Captain America cameos and stuff.
No, I did notice that his aside from the really old Bucky stuff that they probably on purpose decided not to use, not like they forgot.
Right.
I think they pretty much matched it from what I could tell. So I can imagine that that's why it was really popular too. That they didn't really like change too much, but they did also make it kind of more current.
They matched the MCU more to the newer comics for sure. I think that a lot of the older ones were they don't hold up well now, not just because of like political stuff, but just in general. This is one of the few characters that I actually think they did better in the MCU than in the comics. And they made his death more meaningful, the timing of it more meaningful.
I'm actually curious to see if he actually is the one who's going to take over as Captain America. Because honestly, I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be Falcon.
Really?
Why?
Because he doesn't have Winter Soldier's like a damn near like a mirror of Captain America with his strength and all all his abilities.
True.
The fuck is Falcon got? He's like a fucking like he's like Iron Man, dude. He's like a knockoff Iron Man, but not as cool. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Like how the fuck is he throwing the shield right now?
So
I guess
since
there's
you're
a technique.
Since you're mentioning it, let's get into it. Here's the issue that I have with people saying it should be Bucky, it should be Bucky, it should be Bucky. For one, they always talk about the comics. There's also a storyline, plenty of them, where Sam Wilson is Captain America. So I'm going to get that out of the way right now. Second of all, I don't remember the exact wording, even though we just watched it, but at the beginning, it's about Captain America being an image of hope for the people. The people are only going to remember Winter Soldier for what he did. Their trust in him, just like Sam's trust in him, is gone. The best way to put this, or the best way to present this to people, is you draw a line, what are those called? Those little diagrams. You have person one, and you have person two. You talk about, all right, person one on the left. He was loyal to Cap. He was loyal to America. He was loyal to his government. He's an all-around good guy. He has the trust of